That's a very nice approach. That it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them.
If you make a mistake in the lab, you blow the building, and that's not okay. You need to be mindful of the consequences. But for a lot of what we do, you close the server, we restart the server, we learn how this happened, and we try to correct for next time. So you need to evaluate the consequences of the possible mistakes. If there is a data leak, then this is really bad. We need to be careful about it. If we crash the server, we crash the server. That's not a big deal. And I think it's important to talk about it and to tell a newcomer, a student who arrives in this environment where you have big computers, big data, and everyone says it's sensitive, you need to be careful. Then they don't want to try.
Yes.
It's okay to say, look, the other week I made this mistake. It's all right, we just corrected and redid the analysis.
So you have team members that come from like the health sciences, biological sciences, and then you also need to get them comfortable working in a digital lab, a completely new way of working. You know, some of your students have never coded before, and you're then able to get them up to speed in a nice way and give them the confidence to try. So can you tell us a bit about how you approach this kind of training when they first start?
We do it for every person different. Discuss with them, see what they know, what they want to achieve. Try to find ways that they can build their skills. We discuss with them, where do you want to go, what do you want to learn, and then put them in the team. We start simple with some simple tasks. You want to run a GWAS, that's perfectly fine. That's our pipeline. If you want to do it on your phenotype, you will need to change this file and this file. And then usually they get started with this very fast. Talk with their neighbor in the office. We try to have a very close environment where you can, if you need something, you ask your neighbor. You don't need to set up a Teams call in 2 weeks and discuss something with the PI. It's important that the team is able to react very quickly. And then they help each other. They use online resources a lot. And you would be surprised. People learn really, really fast. And especially we have medical students, biologists. Once they are in the right environment, they learn coding really, really fast.
Right. That's exciting to hear, because I think that's also going to be so important for their careers, right, going forward.
Yes. We should not say that it's easy. It's really hard. It takes time. It takes energy. But once you have activated this, once you have activated the learner, once you have put them in the right environment, they develop really quickly.
That's really impressive. And you're also able to do this in a setting where you work on really sensitive data.
Exactly. This in a way helps in the sense that we have safeguards in many ways, and the system is very uniform. It's not like so when I teach to students, I have some with Mac, some with Windows, some with Linux, and then you spend a lot of time adapting to each and every setup. Whereas here in our secure environment, we know that we have standard pipelines up and running. You want to customize them. You're going to change a few things, but you don't need to reinvent the whole system for every analysis. And I think that, in a way, is sometimes easier to work with sensitive data because you quickly get rid of old habits, like I want to click with my mouse. No, don't use your mouse. I want to do something in Excel. There is no Excel. And the fact that we move to a new environment, it helps in a way transitioning to something new. We leave behind us the bad habits.
Are there other bad habits that can arise?
Yes. If you get used to the system too much, you work with it every day, you tend to forget that you are in a secure environment and, for example, that you should not copy-paste something. Oh, Mark, I have a question. Can you check this table? No, don't paste the table in Slack. You know it's forbidden. But if you forget about these small things that we need to respect in everyday basis, then you can quickly have, it's not a very bad data leak, but we need to enforce all the time. Don't do this. You remember, we're not allowed to do this.
Right. Yes. Because you have to also absolutely take care of the data and the participants, right?
Exactly. And in our lab, that's something I'm quite proud of, in the sense that people are really aware that these are not just numbers. These are data that have been given by participants, by human beings, by maybe our neighbor, and that we need to be very careful about it, careful about how we handle this data, but also careful about how we communicate about this data, and careful about the science that we make with this data. In the sense that you want to treat your neighbor as good as you want them to treat you. In the same way, you want to treat that data in the way you would like them to treat your data.
And I remember you told me you came up with this almost like a game approach of don't find Stefan.
We know that we have some colleagues in the data, and sometimes when you look at the line in the how do you say? When you look at a line in the code, you see not only numbers, but you see a life unrolling in front of you. You see a mother who has been sick and then has had a son, and then the son grew, and you don't want to. You want to treat this data as respectful of the person, but you should never invade their privacy. You should never be influenced by the person who is behind the numbers. And this is very a very thin line that we have to set boundaries. It's very important, especially when you work with data from families who have had difficulties, who have had challenges, but also could be your neighbor. So you could be tempted to just look and try. So then that's why we have this joke. We know that the head of our center is in this data set, but we always say to students, you're never ever allowed to look for your boss in the data set.
Yes. Yes, but it makes sense. I think they have a very nice understanding and a very respectful approach to the data and to their work.
Exactly, yes. And the moment you're able to put things in a way that you can relate to, it can be your neighbor, it can be your boss, and this completely changes the perspective on the data. And that's where you realize, because people are really careful about sensitive data, but if you just look at the law or textbook, it does not speak to the analyst. And once the analyst puts things in context, oh, this could be Stefan, I want to be careful.
So in training these incoming scientists, what kind of skills do you think are important for them to pick up for their coming years in science?
Working with data in general, you need to pick up many skills. The very first things that we do is try to improve their skills in terms of keeping track of what you do. Just like in a wet lab, you have your lab book. That's the first thing you learn in the lab. You want to be careful with your lab book so that at the end of your PhD, you go back to it, you know what happened. We do the same with version control. You want to know what happened to the data. Learn that processing things once is easy, but it's not what we do. There will always be a time where your supervisor, Stefan, asks you, but can you try this? Can you redo this? What happened here? Or you find that you made a mistake very early in the analysis, and so you need to reroll. So what's important not necessarily to learn how to process data, but how to reprocess, change, adapt, improve. So these are the two key things, and have good practices to know what happened to the data at which stage. Look at your data at every stage to make sure that everything is fine. looking at the data is something that is key for the success of a project, and people don't talk enough about it, especially in training, where everyone is focused on executing, getting the p-value, executing, getting the summary statistics. But at every step, you need to look at your data to have a sense of what is happening to your data.
That makes a lot of sense. So I come from the wet lab world, and we would always look at the cells in the microscope to check how they are doing.
Exactly. You want to check every day, and same for us. Every evening, every morning, we log into the lab and check that the data are doing fine, pipelines are running. It sounds a bit obsessive, but it's just you for like yourselves. You want to make sure that everything is running fine.
Yeah. It's one of the major fears I hear from students in the digital labs is that they're scared of messing something up for someone else.
Yes. For that, we hear that a lot. And that's something that we try to work during the onboarding. We explain these areas in the lab are safe, just like you would do in a wet lab, where you have the same stem cell lab. Only the stem cell trained people go in, and so we have these areas in the lab. In archive genetics, only a few people have write access. The other ones have only read access. And so try to mess it up, you will get an error message. So then they can try to change something, and then they see, oh, error message. Okay, then my pipeline will not manage to destroy these things. And then afterwards, we have a bit of an organization. Each of them have their own space in the lab, and you don't go sneaking in the space of your neighbor. You only go if you are asked to. And having this onboarding talk, having these good practices when they work, that helps. Containing the risk of messing things up.
In many ways, you're treating the digital lab very similar as you would a wet lab.
Yes. It's in many ways similar. It's humans working together, trying to do science, and we take a lot of the practices that you learn in the lab on the digital space as well.
Because there is a lot of coordinating and administration in here, right? Especially for you when there's a large group.
Yes, and that is a challenge in the sense that universities, research environments don't necessarily consider the digital space in the same way as the actual space. And they don't provision for coordination, paying the rent, paying the consumables. The digital space is still not in the system, and that poses challenges to us because we need to do the administration, coordination on top of the research work, and we need to finance the digital lab on research funds. It's not something that is from the core funding of research institutions.
So in many ways, the funding bodies or the whole way we think about the digital labs is a little bit immature, maybe.
It's not my place to judge these things, but it's definitely something where I see that awareness is raising, especially with all this AI hype that we need, and the data safety concerns. We need to invest more in our digital spaces, include them in the overall infrastructure, and be mindful that they are secure, while at the same time enabling modern data science.
So we have all of these really amazing resources, the biobanks and the health registries and all of the extensive data sets. And we want to make sure that we actually get value and that the value is brought back to the participants. So can you reflect a little bit on going forward, how the scientific community can ensure that we bring value back to the participants?
A few things that I can put forward, but people who are really expert in this type of things would tell that there are other priorities. But I think it's the scientific community needs to appropriate themselves this data and open their creativity to find new things. So the data should be as accessible as possible to the research and scientific community, while at the same time being mindful of the privacy of the participants, of also geopolitical considerations. If you just open your data for the pharma industry and you don't get anything in return, if you just send your data to another country and this other country does not provide anything in return. So we need to be a bit mindful. Yesterday there was a comparison with the oil industry. If just a few people benefit from it, then all the data that has been gathered by the society will be mishandled in a way. And another thing is that if we just like throw huge algorithms at data or store everything without consideration of what is really needed, what needs to be prioritized, we will waste a lot of resources. So we need to be mindful of our resources. We have limited resources in terms of personnel. We have limited resources in terms of storage and computational capabilities. And all these things have a massive energetic cost. So we need to be a bit mindful. Do we really need to run this large model where a simple model would just do fine? So strangely, when you work on your computer on a secure environment, you feel like in a bubble. We need to be mindful that this bubble is part of a world where you have very strong tensions politically, environmentally.
I think that's a very important perspective. Yeah, as scientists, it's easy to be inside the bubble, right?
As a researcher, you want to do something good for humanity, and we need to be mindful that we are surrounded by people who don't share this views.
Yeah. So one thing we talked about previously is bringing participants in actively. We talked about even onboarding participants. Do you want to share a bit on your reflections around that?
That's more a dream that I have, that like I'm talking to you every now and then, I would love to hear what the participants in the cohort, in the registry, think about what we are doing. To just break the barrier between the participants and the research community and say, this is what I see on my computer. What do you think about it? This is the type of research that we do. Do you think that it's good for the society? Are you happy with, because you gave the data, you answered all these questionnaires, do you feel that we're doing a good job? And I sincerely hope that we can have regular meetings where researchers can show their data back to the participants and say, look, thanks to you, I know it was a lot of time filling these questionnaires, but look, the next generation will have it better thanks to you.
Yeah.
And I would really love that we can open the doors and show them how we are working, why we are doing what we do, and all the good things that come out of it and don't necessarily make it in the newspapers.
Yeah, because there's a very important trust, relationship, partnership thing here, right? With the participants.
Exactly. And for the participant provided their data to an institution. And this is very impersonal. So they might lose trust in the institution, or they might wonder what happens behind all these walls. And behind all these walls, you have people like me who are trying to do something good. So why don't we open the doors of this institution and say, welcome, just come and look at what happens with all the questionnaires that you have filled, with all the samples that you have sent, and tell us what you think.
I think that sounds amazing.
I would love to see that happen.
Yes, like really open the door, as you say, and invite them in.
Yes.
This is a very inspiring and amazing story to hear, Mark. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. It was really nice and always a pleasure to be with the Hunt Cloud family.